Princess Zarathel of the Kethran Empire stood at the massive viewing window of her father's palace, watching the strange ship approach their homeworld. The vessel looked primitive compared to their own sleek spacecraft. All hard angles and rough metal instead of the flowing, crystalline designs her people preferred. She wrinkled her nose in distaste. This was the ship carrying her future husband, a human from the backward planet called Earth. The marriage had been arranged by the Galactic Council as part of a new alliance. Humans were a recently discovered species, barely past their own star system when the Kethrans found them. They had shown some promise in a few small conflicts, but Zara couldn't understand why the Council thought they deserved a seat at the diplomatic table. Her people had ruled star systems for thousands of years, while humans were still learning to leave their own planet. Your Highness, her advisor, Veltar, approached with his usual respectful bow. The human delegation has landed. Your betrothed awaits in the reception hall. Zara sighed deeply. She was 28 in Earth years, considered young for a Kethran royal but old enough to understand her duty. This marriage would secure her people's position in the growing Galactic Alliance and give the humans legitimacy they hadn't earned. She would endure it for her empire's sake. The walk to the reception hall felt longer than usual. Servants lined the corridors, their expressions carefully neutral, but she could sense their curiosity. Everyone wanted to see the primitive human who would marry their princess. Zara held her head high, her silver hair flowing behind her like liquid starlight, a trait all Kethrans possessed that humans surely lacked. When the ornate doors opened, she saw him for the first time. Marcus Chen stood near the center of the vast hall, looking remarkably calm for someone meeting alien royalty. He was shorter than she had expected. Kethrans averaged 7 feet tall while he appeared to be only 6 feet. His hair was dark instead of silver, and his skin had a warm tone rather than the pale blue of her people. Most surprising was how he didn't seem overwhelmed by the grand architecture around him. The reception hall was designed to intimidate visitors. Towering crystal pillars reached toward a domed ceiling that showed real-time images of distant galaxies. Floating sculptures of pure energy danced between the pillars, and the floor itself was made from rare minerals that sparkled with inner light. Most alien visitors spent their first minutes staring in wonder. Marcus simply looked around once, nodded appreciatively, then focused his attention on her approach. His brown eyes met hers without the fear or worship she usually saw from other species. This surprised her more than she wanted to admit. "Your Highness," he said, performing what she recognized as a human bow. It was different from Kethran customs, but showed clear respect. "I'm honored to meet you." His voice was deeper than she had expected, and he spoke her language with only a slight accent. She had learned some basic human speech patterns, but hadn't expected him to master Kethran so well. "Marcus Chen of Earth," she replied formally. "Welcome to Kethra Prime." Sen. The next hour passed in formal introductions and diplomatic pleasantries. Marcus met her father, Emperor Korthel, and various ministers and generals. Zara watched him carefully throughout these meetings. He asked thoughtful questions about their technology and culture, but never in a way that seemed ignorant or demanding. Instead, he appeared genuinely interested in understanding their ways. What bothered her most was how the other Kethrans responded to him. Her father, usually dismissive of other species, seemed to actually enjoy their conversation. General Mordek, her people's greatest military mind, spent nearly 20 minutes discussing strategy with the human. Even her scholarly uncle, Professor Sylvain, appeared engaged when Marcus asked about their mathematical principles. During a break in the formal proceedings, Zara found herself alone with Marcus on one of the palace's observation terraces. The view showed the capital city stretching to the horizon, its crystal spires reaching toward the 3 moons overhead. "It's beautiful," Marcus said, looking out at the vista. "The way your architecture works with the natural landscape instead of fighting it. On Earth, we're still learning how to build cities that don't destroy the environment around them." This admission of human limitations satisfied something in Zara. "Your people are young," she said, not unkindly. "Perhaps you will learn. In time." Marcus smiled, and she noticed it wasn't the nervous expression she expected. "We're definitely young," he agreed. "But sometimes being new to something gives you a different perspective. Fresh eyes can see solutions that experience might miss. Everyone. Before she could respond to this strange idea, alarms began blaring throughout the palace. The musical tones that normally announced visitors or ceremonies were replaced by harsh, urgent sounds that meant only one thing: danger. General Mordek's voice echoed from communication crystals throughout the terrace. All security units to combat stations. We have hostile ships approaching the planet. This is not a drill. Zara's blood chilled. The Kethran Empire had few enemies, but the ones they did have were dangerous. She thought immediately of the Vorthak, a militant species that had been raiding outer colonies. If they had dared to attack the homeworld directly, it meant they had either gone completely insane or had somehow gained significant new capabilities. We should get to the secured areas, she told Marcus, moving toward the palace interior. The defensive systems will protect us, but she stopped when she realized Marcus wasn't following her. Instead, he stood at the terrace railing, looking up at the sky with an expression of intense concentration. His hands gripped the stone barrier, and she noticed his knuckles had gone white. "Marcus," she called, "we need to seek shelter." "How many ships?" he asked without turning around. "What? How many enemy ships are attacking?" His voice had changed, becoming sharper and more focused than during their diplomatic conversations. Zara activated her personal communication crystal. "General Mordek, what is our tactical situation?" 17 Vorthak assault vessels, Your Highness. Heavy cruiser class. They've somehow bypassed our outer detection grid and are making a direct assault on the palace district. We're mobilizing the defense fleet, but they won't reach engagement range for another 8 minutes. Marcus finally turned to face her, and Zara was startled by what she saw. The polite diplomat was gone, replaced by someone with hard eyes and a jaw set in determination. This was a side of him she hadn't seen during their formal meetings. 8 minutes is too long, he said. Do your people have any close-range defensive weapons around the palace? Of course, she replied, confused by his sudden interest in military matters. Point defense lasers, particle beam arrays, missile batteries, but they're designed to work in coordination with the fleet. Without the main defense grid, they're not very effective against a full assault. What about manual override capabilities? The question was so specific and tactical that it caught her off guard. I'm not certain. General Mordek would know. Marcus was already moving toward the palace interior, but not in the direction of the secured areas. Instead, he headed for the command center. Zara followed, her confusion growing with each step. This human was supposed to be a diplomat, not a military strategist. Why was he asking about weapons systems? The command center was chaos when they arrived. Kethran officers stood around displays showing the approaching enemy fleet, their voices rising as they tried to coordinate a response. The Vorthak ships were moving fast, and had clearly planned this attack carefully. They were targeting the palace specifically, not the entire city. General Mordek, Marcus called out, approaching the senior officer. I need to know about manual overrides for your defensive systems. The general looked up from his tactical display, surprise clear on his face. Mr. Chen, you should be in the secured areas with the princess. Answer his question, Zara said, surprising herself. Something in Marcus's behavior suggested he had a plan. And with enemy ships 6 minutes away from weapons range, they needed any idea they could get. Most systems can be operated manually, Mordek replied reluctantly. But it requires someone to be physically present at each weapons station. Our normal automated coordination would be impossible. That's actually better, Marcus said, studying the tactical displays with an intensity that seemed impossible for someone from a supposedly primitive species. Automation makes you predictable. The Vorthak have clearly studied your defensive patterns, or they wouldn't have gotten this close. Manual operation means they won't know what to expect. He pointed to specific locations on the display showing the palace district. These 3 missile batteries have overlapping coverage zones. If you coordinate their firing in a specific sequence, you can create a kill box here. His finger traced a path through the approaching ship's formation. They're flying in a tight assault pattern because they expect your automated systems to engage them individually. Hit them all at once when they're committed to their approach vector, and you can take out most of the formation before they can scatter. General Mordek stared at the human with a new expression. That could work. But it would require precise timing. Someone would have to coordinate the manual firing from a central position while maintaining communication with all 3 batteries. I can do that, Marcus said simply. The command center fell silent. Even the junior officers stopped their urgent conversations to stare at the human who had just volunteered to coordinate their planet's defense. Zara felt her own assumptions beginning to shift. This wasn't the behavior of a primitive diplomat trying to impress his alien hosts. This was someone who understood tactics and wasn't afraid to put himself at risk. Mr. Chen, General Mordek said carefully. With respect, coordinating defensive batteries requires extensive training in our systems. Even experienced Kethran officers need weeks of preparation for such responsibility. Marcus met the general's gaze steadily. On Earth, we have a saying: improvise, adapt, overcome. Your systems aren't that different from what humans use. Energy weapons, targeting computers, ballistic calculations. The principles are the same, even if the technology is more advanced. Sometimes being an outsider means you can see things differently. Before anyone could respond, another alarm sounded. 4 minutes to enemy weapons range, announced a junior officer. Emperor Korthel entered the command center, his presence immediately commanding attention. Status report, he demanded. As General Mordek explained the situation and Marcus's proposal, Zara watched her father's expression change. The Emperor had ruled the Kethran Empire for 300 years and had seen many species and many warriors. He studied Marcus with the same intensity he might use to evaluate a new general or an enemy commander. This plan of yours, the Emperor said directly to Marcus. If it fails, the palace falls, and many will die. If we do nothing different from what the Vorthak expect, Marcus replied, the result will be the same. They've planned for your standard responses. The only advantage we have is doing something they haven't prepared for. Zara realized she was holding her breath. In the space of a few minutes, this human had gone from being her unwanted diplomatic husband to potentially the key to defending her homeworld. The transformation was so complete that she wondered if she had misjudged everything about him. 3 minutes to weapons range, called the junior officer. Emperor Korthel looked at his daughter, then back at Marcus. General Mordek, give him access to the coordination station. All manual battery teams, stand by for human tactical command. As Marcus moved to the central control position, Zara felt something she hadn't expected. Pride in the human who was about to become her husband. Whatever happened in the next few minutes, he had already proven that her initial assumptions about his people had been completely wrong. The real test was about to begin. Marcus settled into the central coordination station, his hands moving across the Kethran control interface with surprising confidence. The alien symbols and displays seemed to make sense to him in a way that amazed Zara. She had grown up with this technology, yet he was adapting to it faster than should have been possible. Battery Alpha, report status. Marcus spoke into the communication system, his voice calm despite the approaching enemy fleet. Battery Alpha ready, sir, came the reply from the Eastern Weapons platform. The Kethran officer's voice showed surprise at receiving orders from a human, but military discipline held. Battery Beta, status. Ready, sir. Missile systems armed and tracking. Battery Gamma, final check. All systems operational. Targeting solution locked on enemy formation. Marcus studied the tactical display showing the Vorthak ship's approach. They were coming in exactly as he had predicted. A tight formation designed to overwhelm automated defenses through concentrated firepower. The alien ships looked deadly, sleek black vessels bristling with weapon systems that could reduce the palace to rubble within minutes. 2 minutes to weapons range, announced the junior officer monitoring the main display. Zara moved closer to watch Marcus work. What she saw challenged everything she thought she knew about human capabilities. His eyes moved constantly between multiple displays, tracking ship positions, weapon charge levels, and firing solutions simultaneously. When Kethrin officers needed extensive computer assistance to manage even a single battery, he was coordinating 3 without breaking concentration. "General Mordek," Marcus said without looking away from his displays. "What's the maximum effective range of your particle beam weapons?" "Approximately 400,000 kilometers," the general replied. "But accuracy drops significantly beyond 300,000. And the Vorthak's defensive shields? Their shield strength is designed to absorb multiple hits from our standard engagement patterns. They normally attack in sequence, allowing our automated systems to engage one ship at a time." Marcus nodded, his fingers dancing across the control interface. "That's their mistake. They're expecting your systems to engage their lead ships first, just like always. Battery commanders, listen carefully. I'm going to designate 3 specific targets in their formation. Not the ships in front, but ships in the middle of their group." The tactical display updated, showing 3 Vorthak vessels highlighted in red. They weren't the largest or most threatening ships, but their positions were clearly strategic. "Sir," came a voice from Battery Alpha, "those targets are shielded by other vessels." "Standard engagement doctrine suggests—" "Forget standard doctrine," Marcus interrupted. "Those 3 ships are their coordination hubs. Take them out, and the rest of their formation loses tactical cohesion. Trust me on this." Zara exchanged glances with her father. Standard Kethrin military doctrine had been refined over centuries of warfare. The idea that a human could arrive and immediately suggest improvement seemed impossible. Yet Marcus spoke with absolute confidence. 1 minute to weapons range. All batteries report ready to fire. Marcus leaned forward, watching the enemy formation with the intensity of a predator. "Wait for my signal. When they reach optimal position, we fire all 3 batteries simultaneously. Not in sequence, at exactly the same moment." "Sir, coordinated firing like that requires computer assistance," protested the battery beta commander. "Manual timing won't be precise enough." "Watch me," Marcus said simply. The Vorthak ships continued their approach, growing larger on the tactical displays. Zara could see the weapons ports along their hulls beginning to glow as they prepared to fire on the palace. Her people's strongest shields protected the royal district, but she knew they couldn't withstand a sustained bombardment from 17 heavy cruisers. 30 seconds to optimal firing position, Marcus announced. "All batteries, charge weapons to maximum. We only get 1 shot at this." Zara realized she was gripping the edge of a console so tightly that her knuckles ached. Around the command center, Kethrin officers watched in tense silence. Even General Mordek had stopped giving orders, apparently willing to trust the human's tactical judgment. The seconds crawled by. On the display, the Vorthak formation moved closer, their ships maintaining the tight formation that had been their strength and was now about to become their weakness. Marcus watched multiple countdown timers, his body completely still, except for his eyes tracking the approaching fleet. 10 seconds, he said quietly. "Battery Alpha, prepare to fire on my mark." "Ready, sir." "Battery Beta, stand by." "Standing by." "Battery Gamma, target locked." "Confirmed, target locked." The Vorthak ships reached the position Marcus had calculated. For a heartbeat, everything hung in balance. Then his voice cut through the tension. "Fire! All batteries, fire now!" 3 massive particle beams lanced out from different positions around the palace, converging on the enemy formation simultaneously. The beams struck their targets at precisely the same instant, overwhelming the Vorthak shields through coordinated impact, rather than sequential attacks. The 3 designated ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light, their destruction sending shockwaves through the tight enemy formation. But Marcus wasn't finished. "Batteries reload immediately," he ordered, already tracking the scattered ships. "Alpha, target the heavy cruiser at bearing 27 Mark 4. Beta, take the damaged vessel at bearing 31 Mark 8. Gamma, fire at the ship trying to break away to starboard." The coordinated attack had worked exactly as Marcus predicted. Without their coordination ships, the Vorthak formation dissolved into individual vessels, each trying to complete the mission independently. This made them much easier targets for the palace defenses. "Fire," Marcus called again. Another wave of particle beams reached out, destroying 2 more enemy ships and severely damaging a third. The remaining Vorthok vessels suddenly found themselves facing a defensive system that wasn't behaving according to any pattern they had studied. "Sir, the enemy fleet is breaking off their attack run," reported the sensor operator. "They're regrouping at longer range." Scene 55. Are regrouping at longer range. Marcus studied the tactical situation, his mind clearly working through possibilities that Zara couldn't even see. "They'll try to approach from multiple angles now," he said. "General Mordek? What other defensive positions can we coordinate with?" "The city's outer defensive ring has 6 automated platforms," the general replied, his voice showing new respect. "But they operate independently. There's no central coordination protocol." "There is now," Marcus said, already working with the communication systems. "Patch me through to each platform commander." What followed amazed everyone in the command center. Marcus began coordinating not just the palace batteries, but the entire defensive network around the capital city. He spoke to 6 different commanders simultaneously, using individual communication channels while maintaining awareness of the overall tactical situation. The Vorthok had regrouped into 2 smaller formations, approaching from different angles as Marcus had predicted. Their new strategy was designed to split the defensive fire and reduce the effectiveness of coordinated attacks. It didn't work. Marcus had anticipated this exact response. As the enemy ships approached from 2 directions, he had positioned the various defensive batteries to create overlapping fields of fire. When the Vorthok reached optimal range, they found themselves facing not scattered independent weapons, but a coordinated defensive network that acted like a single massive system. "All platforms, execute firing pattern Delta," Marcus commanded. "Remember, we want to concentrate fire, not spread it. Take them down 1 ship at a time." The result was devastating. The scattered Vorthok ships found themselves caught in precisely coordinated crossfires that their shields couldn't handle. One by one, they were destroyed or disabled, until only 3 vessels remained. "Sir, the surviving enemy ships are requesting permission to withdraw," reported the communications officer. Marcus looked at Emperor Korthel. "Your call, Your Majesty. But I recommend letting them go. They'll report back to their leadership that attacking Kethra Prime is far more costly than they calculated." The Emperor nodded slowly. "Grant them safe passage. But make it clear that any future aggression will be met with the same response." As the defeated Vorthok ships limped away from the system, the command center erupted in celebration. Kethran officers who had been resigned to a desperate defensive battle found themselves victorious with minimal casualties. The palace was intact, the enemy was defeated, and their new human ally had proven capabilities that no one had expected. Zara stared at Marcus as he calmly shut down the coordination systems and stepped away from the control station. The transformation she had witnessed was complete. This wasn't the polite diplomat who had arrived that morning, nor was it the primitive human she had expected to marry out of duty. This was a tactical genius who had just saved her homeworld using nothing but intelligence, adaptability, and skills that supposedly primitive humans shouldn't possess. "Where did you learn to do that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus turned to face her, and she saw that the hard military bearing was already fading back into diplomatic courtesy. But now she knew what lay beneath that surface. "Earth isn't as peaceful as your intelligence reports suggest," he said with a slight smile. "We've been fighting wars for thousands of years. When you're always outnumbered and outgunned, you learn to be creative. Every human military officer studies coordination and tactical adaptation from childhood. We have to. Our survival depends on it." General Mordek approached them, his expression one of professional admiration. "Mr. Chen, what you accomplished today should have been impossible. Coordinating 7 independent weapons platforms manually while maintaining tactical awareness of the entire battle space. Our most experienced officers require extensive computer assistance for far simpler operations." "With respect, General," Marcus replied, "I think you've been depending on your technology too much. Computers are excellent tools, but they make you predictable. Today worked because the Vorthok had never faced human tactics. They expected your systems to behave in specific ways, so we did something different. Emperor Corthell joined the conversation, his ancient eyes studying Marcus with new understanding. You speak of human military tactics, as if your people are experienced warriors, yet our intelligence suggests Earth has been at peace for decades. Marcus's smile became slightly sad. Earth has been at peace between nations for about 50 years, but we've been fighting smaller conflicts, training continuously, and studying warfare from every possible angle during that entire time. When you're the new species in a galaxy full of advanced civilizations, you prepare for everything. Today was just the first time we had to use what we've learned. Zara felt her worldview shifting in fundamental ways. Humans weren't the primitive species she had assumed. They were a young civilization that had apparently spent their recent history preparing for exactly this kind of situation. The marriage alliance suddenly made sense from a completely different perspective. The council knew, she said, realization dawning. They knew what your people were capable of. Some of them suspected, Marcus admitted. But today was a test for all of us. Your people needed to see that humans could contribute meaningfully to galactic security. My people needed to prove that we deserve our place in the alliance. And you, he looked directly at her, needed to see who you were actually marrying. Before Zara could respond, alarms began sounding again, but these weren't warnings of danger. They were the triumphant tones that announced the arrival of the Kethran defense fleet. Through the viewing windows, she could see their own ships returning to find a battle already won and an enemy already defeated. Admiral Thekvar's voice crackled through the communication system. Palace Command. This is the defense fleet. We're detecting scattered debris and no enemy contacts. What is your status? General Mordek looked at Marcus, who gestured for him to answer. Admiral, threat has been neutralized. 17 Vorthak assault vessels were defeated by coordinated defensive action. Palace and city are secure. 17 ships? How is that possible? Our estimates suggested palace defenses could handle maybe 3 vessels in a direct assault. We had assistance, Admiral. The human tactical advisor coordinated our entire defensive network manually and developed new engagement patterns that proved extremely effective. The silence on the communication channel stretched for several seconds. When Admiral Thekvar spoke again, his voice carried a note of respect that Zara had never heard him use for any alien species. Mr. Chen, this is Admiral Thekvar. I understand we owe you a debt of gratitude. No debt, Admiral, Marcus replied. Just allies helping allies. That's what this alliance is supposed to be about. As the immediate crisis ended and normal operations resumed, Zara found herself walking back to the observation terrace with Marcus. The palace staff moved around them with new deference, word of the humans' tactical brilliance spreading rapidly throughout the complex. I owe you an apology, she said when they were alone again. I made assumptions about your people, and about you, that were completely wrong. Marcus looked out at the city, where crews were already beginning repairs on the few buildings damaged during the attack. No apology needed. Those assumptions were reasonable based on the information you had. Earth is young compared to Kethra. We haven't built an interstellar empire or developed technology centuries ahead of our neighbors. From the outside, we probably do look primitive, but you're not. No, he agreed simply. We're just different. Your people mastered technology and built a civilization that spans star systems. My people mastered adaptation and learned to survive against impossible odds. Both approaches have their strengths. Zara realized that her understanding of their upcoming marriage had completely changed. This morning, she had been dreading a political arrangement with someone she considered beneath her station. Now, she was looking forward to learning more about the remarkable human who had just saved her world. The question was whether Marcus felt the same way about her. 3 days after the battle, Zara found Marcus in the palace's tactical center, studying defensive plans with General Mordek and the senior staff. Word of the humans' victory had spread throughout the Kethran Empire and beyond, creating ripples that reached across the galaxy. What she witnessed during those planning sessions continued to challenge everything she thought she knew about human capabilities. The northern defensive perimeter has 3 weak points, Marcus was explaining, pointing to specific locations on a holographic map. If you modify the patrol routes here and here, you can create overlapping coverage zones that eliminate those vulnerabilities. But that would require 18 additional hours of patrol time per day, objected Colonel Yendar. Our crews would be exhausted within a week. Not if you adjust the shift rotations, Marcus replied, already working with the scheduling displays. Look, instead of 8-hour shifts, use 6-hour rotations with longer rest periods. Your crews stay fresh, you get better coverage, and the patrol patterns become unpredictable to potential attackers. General Mordek studied the proposed changes with obvious respect. This is remarkably efficient. Where did you learn such detailed scheduling optimization? Earth's military academies, Marcus answered simply. When you're always outnumbered, you learn to maximize every advantage. Crew rotation, resource allocation, tactical positioning. Everything has to be perfect, because you can't afford to waste anything. Zara watched from the doorway, amazed by how naturally her people had accepted Marcus into their most sensitive military planning. 3 days ago, the idea of sharing defensive secrets with any alien would have been unthinkable. Now, Kethran officers sought his opinions and implemented his suggestions without question. Princess, General Mordek noticed her presence and bowed formally. Perhaps you and Mr. Chen would like privacy to discuss the upcoming ceremony? The wedding was scheduled for tomorrow, originally planned as a simple political formality. But the events of 3 days ago had transformed everything. What should have been a quiet diplomatic exchange had become a celebration that representatives from dozens of worlds wanted to attend. Actually, Zara said, I was hoping Marcus might join me for a private dinner tonight. We should talk before tomorrow's ceremony. Marcus looked up from the tactical displays, meeting her eyes with that direct gaze she had grown to appreciate. I'd like that. Give me an hour to finish here. She nodded and retreated to her private quarters to prepare. The dinner invitation hadn't been entirely spontaneous. She had been thinking about their conversation for 3 days, trying to understand the man she was about to marry. The polite diplomat she had met first had been real, but so had the tactical genius who saved her world. She wanted to know which was the true Marcus Chen. An hour later, he arrived at her private dining room wearing formal Kethran attire that suited him surprisingly well. Someone in the palace staff had taken care to ensure the garments fit properly, and she noticed he wore them with natural comfort rather than the awkwardness she might have expected. You look like you were born to wear those clothes, she commented as they took their seats. Marcus smiled, settling into the chair across from her. Your people have excellent tailors. Though I have to admit, I prefer clothing that's easier to move in during emergencies. Are you always thinking about tactics and defensive situations? Occupational hazard, he replied with a slightly sheepish expression. Human military training doesn't really have an off switch. We're taught to assess every environment for potential threats and advantages. It becomes automatic after a while. Zara poured wine for both of them, a rare vintage from her family's private collection. Is that why you were able to coordinate our defenses so effectively? Because you automatically analyzed our weaknesses? Partly, Marcus admitted. But mostly it worked because your enemy made assumptions about how Kethrans fight. They studied your standard tactics and planned accordingly. When someone completely different took control of your systems, their preparations became useless. General Mordek told me that what you accomplished should have taken years of training with our specific equipment. How is that possible? Marcus sipped his wine thoughtfully. Human military doctrine emphasizes adaptability above everything else. We train on dozens of different weapon systems, vehicle types, and command structures. The theory is that, if you understand the principles behind something, you can figure out the specifics quickly when necessary. But you'd never seen Kethran technology before that day. No. But I understood what it was supposed to do. Energy weapons work on consistent principles regardless of who builds them. Targeting computers use similar mathematical models. Communication systems follow logical patterns. The interface was different, but the underlying concepts were familiar. Zara set down her wine glass, studying his face. You're describing this as if it's normal. But what you did was extraordinary. You coordinated 7 independent weapons platforms while maintaining tactical awareness of an entire battle. Most of our officers couldn't handle that level of complexity. With respect to your officers, Marcus said carefully, I think they've become dependent on automated systems. When everything is computer-controlled, you don't develop the skills to manage complexity manually. Humans can't rely on automation the same way, so we train differently. Because you don't have advanced enough technology? Because we learned not to trust it completely. Marcus corrected. During Earth's wars, both sides developed ways to disrupt enemy computer systems. Electronic warfare became so sophisticated that any battle could turn into a contest of who could destroy the other's automation first. We had to learn to fight effectively even when our technology failed. This revelation struck Zara as profoundly significant. You're saying human military thinking is based on preparing for technological failure? Among other things, yes. We assume our enemies will be smarter, better equipped, and more numerous than us. We assume our technology will malfunction at the worst possible moment. We assume our plans will fall apart and we'll have to improvise. When you train for the worst possible scenarios, normal challenges become manageable. Zara realized she was gaining insight into something much larger than just Marcus's personal capabilities. That's why the Council wanted this alliance. Not because humans are primitive, but because you think about problems differently than the rest of us. Possibly, Marcus agreed. Most galactic species seem to have developed along similar lines. Advanced technology, stable governments, predictable military doctrines. Humans are the anomaly because we're still relatively barbaric. We've had to be creative to survive. You're not barbaric, Zara said firmly. What you did 3 days ago wasn't barbaric. It was brilliant. Marcus's expression softened, and she saw a glimpse of vulnerability beneath his confident exterior. Thank you. I wasn't sure how your people would react to human military methods. We can be unconventional. Create. Unconventional is exactly what we needed, she replied. And it's exactly what I needed. What do you mean? Zara took a deep breath, preparing to say something she had been thinking about for days. I spent my entire life assuming I understood how the universe worked. Advanced species like mine developed superior technology and used it to maintain order. Primitive species like yours learned to be grateful for our guidance. Everything was predictable and controlled. She paused, gathering her thoughts. Then you arrived and saved my world using nothing but intelligence and adaptability. You made our advanced technology more effective by thinking about it differently. You proved that being young and supposedly primitive might actually be advantages in the right circumstances. You're being very generous, Marcus said quietly. No, I'm being honest. 3 days ago, I was dreading our marriage. Because I thought I was sacrificing myself for political necessity. I expected to spend my life taking care of a well-meaning but incompetent husband who would need constant guidance to function in galactic society. Marcus winced slightly. That's a reasonable assumption based on what you knew about humans, but it was completely wrong, Zara continued. I don't need to take care of you. If anything, you've proven that you can take care of me and my entire world. That changes everything about how I think about our marriage. How so? Zara met his eyes directly. I'd like this to be a real partnership, not just a political arrangement. I want to learn about human thinking and human methods. I want to understand how your people see the universe, and I want to know if you're interested in the same kind of relationship. Marcus was quiet for several moments, considering her words carefully. When he spoke, his voice carried the same certainty she had heard when he coordinated the planet's defense. I came here expecting to do my duty for Earth, he said. I was prepared to be respectful, helpful, and supportive of whatever kind of marriage you wanted. I didn't expect to meet someone as intelligent and capable as you are, and I definitely didn't expect to find myself hoping for exactly what you just described. So you're interested in a real partnership? Very much so, Marcus replied. But I should warn you. Being married to a human might be more complicated than you realize. We don't think like other species, and we don't approach problems the way Kethrans do. Are you prepared for that kind of challenge? Zara smiled, feeling genuinely happy for the first time since learning about the arranged marriage. 3 days ago, that question would have terrified me. Now it sounds like exactly the kind of adventure I've been missing. Their conversation continued late into the night, covering everything from military philosophy to cultural differences to their hopes for the future. By the time Marcus returned to his quarters, Zara felt like she was getting to know the real person behind both the diplomat and the tactical genius. The wedding ceremony the next day was unlike anything originally planned. What should have been a small political formality had become a galactic event. Representatives from dozens of species attended, drawn by reports of the human who had revolutionized Kethran defensive doctrine in a single battle. Ambassador Felnox from the Galactic Council delivered a formal address that surprised everyone present. "This union represents more than an alliance between two species," she announced to the assembled delegates. "It demonstrates that the diversity of galactic civilization makes us all stronger. When different approaches to problem-solving combine, the results exceed what any single species could achieve alone." Zara and Marcus exchanged vows that they had written together, promising partnership, mutual respect, and shared commitment to both their people's welfare. When the traditional Kethran binding ceremony concluded, Marcus surprised everyone by producing a simple golden ring from Earth, his culture's symbol of marriage commitment. "I know this isn't part of Kethran tradition," he said as he placed it on her finger, "but I wanted you to have something that represents both our worlds coming together." The reception afterward became an impromptu diplomatic conference, as various species representatives approached Marcus with questions about human military doctrine, tactical thinking, and strategic philosophy. Zara watched with amusement as her new husband found himself surrounded by generals, admirals, and defense ministers from across the galaxy. "Your husband is causing quite a sensation," observed her uncle, Professor Sylvan. "Half the military representatives here are trying to arrange training exchanges with Earth. And the other half?" Zara asked. "Are probably reconsidering their assumptions about human capabilities," he replied with a knowing smile. "The intelligence reports we've been receiving apparently understated your people's potential considerably." Later that evening, as the celebration wound down, Zara and Marcus found themselves alone on the same observation terrace where they had first watched the enemy attack. The view was peaceful now, showing a city that had survived and grown stronger. "Any regrets?" Marcus asked, standing beside her at the railing. "About what?" "About marrying a supposedly primitive human who's going to complicate your life in unpredictable ways." Zara laughed, surprising herself with how natural it felt. "Marcus, 3 days ago you saved my world by thinking differently than anyone expected. Today you've convinced half the galaxy's military leaders that they need to reconsider everything they know about strategic thinking. If that's what complications look like, I can't wait to see what you'll do next." "Well," Marcus said with a grin, "I've been studying your empire's trade routes, and I have some ideas about improving cargo efficiency." "Of course you do," Zara replied, shaking her head in mock exasperation. "Is there any aspect of galactic civilization you don't want to revolutionize?" "I'm just getting started," Marcus admitted. "Human diplomatic doctrine is based on making ourselves useful to our allies. The more value we provide, the stronger our position becomes. And I have a lot of ideas about how human methods could improve various galactic systems." Zara realized that marrying Marcus hadn't just changed her life, it had positioned her to be part of something much larger. If humans were going to transform how galactic civilization approached military, economic, and social challenges, she wanted to be involved in that transformation. "Partners?" she asked, extending her hand. "Partners," Marcus agreed, taking her hand in his. As they stood together watching the stars, Zara reflected on how completely her expectations had been overturned. She had anticipated sacrificing her personal happiness for political necessity. Instead, she had gained a husband who challenged her intellectually, a partnership that excited her professionally, and a future full of possibilities she had never considered. The arranged marriage had become something neither of them had expected. The beginning of a genuine alliance between two people who complemented each other perfectly. And if the response of the galactic community was any indication, their partnership would influence far more than just their personal lives. 3 days ago, an alien princess had underestimated her human husband. Now, she was looking forward to spending the rest of her life being surprised by his capabilities and contributing her own strengths to whatever they would accomplish together. The universe had just become a much more interesting place.